long life. So this is one of the objects that the demigods fight over. On the right, in this sector, I have blown up the realm of humans. Right? You see a wedding procession here, various social classes here. You see a hospice or hospital here. And up top, occupying the position of honor, is a monastery. You see the monastery, Tibetan-style monastery roof, monks going in, and lo and behold, a Buddha figure preaching to them. So these are the more pleasant forms of rebirth within the wheel. And next, let's look at the two on the sides, the realm of hungry ghosts and the realm of animals. The hungry ghosts here are portrayed exactly as they're described in the canonical sources. Their necks are thin as needles, and their stomachs as large as mountains. They're swollen, not from being overfed, but because they're hungry. They're suffering from malnutrition, some people suggest. The realm of the animals also has its higher and lower. In terms of altitude, these are yaks up here in the mountains, snow on the mountains, while down here is water, and a Naga princess here, a Naga powerful being, a serpent-like, part serpent, part dragon-like creature. So these are also possible modes for us to be born into after this life. And of course, the most fun, I'm speaking ironically, is at the bottom. Certainly the most entertaining and the most gripping scenes are here in the depictions of the hells. Here there's a red-skinned demon, flames issuing forth, and people are undergoing the usual assortment of tortures and so forth. And if you've been to the movies recently, you've seen similar tortures. People are thrown here, 2 pots just packed full of people being cooked alive. That's the hot torture. There's a cold torture here. This is a deep ravine where people are rolling about. And there's various forms of slicing and dicing and bodily mutilation. So these are the 6 forms of life. And even if we currently reside in one of the higher realms, up here, as a human being or even as a god, we can be certain that after this lifetime, our deeds will catch up with us. We'll have burned up all of our good deeds from the past, and in our next lifetime, we'll be reborn in one of the lower paths of rebirth. That cycle continues, and it's no accident that all this is laid out, not in terms of a line that has a clear beginning point and ending point, but in terms of a circle, because the process repeats itself. So those are the spokes. Let's look next at the rim. The rim of the wheel is used to express a basic Buddhist teaching. I'll show you the Sanskrit for it in a moment, but it's the teaching of causation. This is the 12-fold chain of dependent origination, or of conditioning the causation from one moment to the next. Some sources divide it into 12 standard parts, other sources divide it into 18, and we'll see examples of the Wheel of Rebirth that use both those numbers. This teaching on causality is a method of explaining continuity from one lifetime to the next, as well as from one deed to the next. So let me take you through just a few of the steps on this 12. On this, let's treat it as a clock face on the 12 positions here on the wheel here. We begin up here in the 1 o'clock position, and here's the enlargement. We begin life with ignorance, avidya, or wuming, unenlightened nature in Chinese. This is symbolized by a blind person. And you see the blind man here feeling his way with a walking stick. That's the condition from which we begin at birth. Our ignorance next gives rise to what the technical sources call formations, or samskrita. And this is symbolized by this stock symbol of a potter. This is a man sitting at a potter's wheel. He has his arm, it's a large pot, and he has his arm in the middle of the pot. He's shaping it. And that activity of the potter shaping the clay is supposed to be a metaphor for the way in which ignorance conditions all of our actions in this lifetime. That in turn gives rise to the next symbol, which is consciousness as a technical term. And the consciousness is beautifully represented by the symbol of the monkey, because both Indian and Chinese cultures, monkeys are hard to pin down, they're naughty, they have very short attention spans. They're the original attention deficit animal. They're constantly hopping from one thing to the next. Thus, the same way as consciousness is difficult to train, is difficult to focus, and moves easily from one thing to the next. Those are the first three symbols. They go on in causation through to things like becoming here as a pregnant woman, and here is birth, a woman giving birth, and to the last link in the chain. Remember, it's the last link at death. It is death, but it's going to be followed by the next link, which is we enter life through ignorance. And here is a Tibetan form of burial. This is an undertaker. He's carrying a bag, so there's a man carrying a bag on his back. In the bag is a corpse, and he is presumably delivering this corpse. You can actually see it here in the original, up to a high spot to be exposed to the elements, where it will be disposed of by natural elements. So the wheel has a way of describing the process by which this life is connected to the next, and by which different moments within life are connected to each other. There are other elements of this wheel. There are things that are not part of the wheel proper. And these other elements help explain the quality of life within the wheel. There's a fairly large, brownish, brick-colored creature holding the wheel in its claws and in its fangs. He has this rust-colored skin. He has 5 skulls in his headdress. He has long fangs. And in almost every painting of the wheel, you'll see the demon has these long, scary fingernails with which he clutches the wheel of rebirth. He is the great demon of impermanence. That's what the texts say. This particular painting follows Tibetan iconography and portrays him as King Yama. So in Tibet, in paintings, this is what King Yama looks like. King Yama is also the Lord of the Dead, or the Judge of the Dead, and you'll see a few more pictures of him in my lecture today. Another indicator of the quality of life in the within samsara, because this is the wheel of rebirth. This is the wheel